It's hard to understand how one person can disappear. It's even harder to realize how two people can just vanish. I mean, really, how does that happen? Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome to Before Amber, a true crime podcast. I'm your host, Lady Amy. So let's get to it. Natasha Alexandria Augusta Carter, who went by Alex, was born on December 22nd, 1989, to Ricky Lafferty and Susan Carter. I wish I could tell you that her life was great and had no problems, but it wasn't. It's not that she wasn't loved or anything like that. She was just stuck in the middle of a very aggressive custody battle between Ricky and Susan. I want to tell you that it was because she was loved so much that both parents just wanted custody of her, but I feel that if that was the case, for Alex's sake, they would find a way that they could both get time with her. But instead, they were putting her through all these ups and downs at such a young age. It was more that they wanted to keep the other one from being with her. Well, at least it seems that that's what her mother wanted. It was reported that Susan was diagnosed with some mental problems, which included paranoia, schizophrenia, manic depression, and bipolar type 1. I'm not judging her or anything like that. I just wanted y'all to be aware of those because that could be what caused some of her problems with this custody battle. Ricky said that Susan would be one way, then the next minute she would be something totally different. If this was true, I can see why he would want custody of Alex and only supervised visits for Susan. Susan was granted supervised visits with Alex at one point, but it seemed that the custody in this case constantly changed. At times, it seemed to be safety reasons. There was a time when Ricky filed child abuse charges on Susan after she grabbed Alex's face and cut her chin with her nails right in front of him just because Alex didn't want to go with her. The disagreements between the two seemed to escalate to the point that at one of their last, if not their last, mediation meeting, Susan told Ricky that he would never see Natasha again. I found a letter from an elementary school counselor from one of the schools Natasha attended in regards to an event that took place on January 25th, 2000, the year our story begins. Based on the wording in this letter, I feel like she may have moved around from school to school. It said that in the 4 weeks she had been at this school, she missed 7 days. That tells me if she was only there for 4 weeks, she hadn't been at the school very long. So she definitely had been in another school at least once, if not more, that school year. But that's not what really got me. The main point of the letter was to show how Alex reacted to the situation at hand. The letter talked about how apparently Ricky came to the school to get Alex, but instead was met by Susan and her new husband, Larry Webb, and was served new custody orders from the sheriff. Ricky, being the loving father that he was, thought that it would be better for Alex if he wasn't there when she came to the office and was having to leave with her mother and Larry. It would just probably upset her if he was there, so he left. It's unclear if she was being moved to a new school or if they were just taking her out for the day or just there to serve him the papers. Anyways, the counselor took Alex to a different room while the adults talked. The counselor said Alex was talking to her. She asked where her dad was. She said she didn't know she was getting picked up that day. The counselor said that Alex was very comfortable with her, but then her mom came in and Alex's demeanor changed. The counselor wrote that Alex turned very pale and became belligerent. She told her mom not to touch her, not to touch her bag, and that she did not want to go with her. All of these could be red flags of abuse or something. I'm not saying that that is the case, but it told the counselor that she wasn't happy in the situation she was in. It was clear that Alex did not want to go with her mother. Ricky was fighting hard for Alex, but Susan was too, but not for the same reason Ricky was. Susan just didn't want Ricky to be able to see Alex. The only person that gets hurt in these situations is the child, and that just breaks my heart. It came to the point that a judge said that they would just have to share custody of Alex. Going back to the school incident, I don't know if those orders were the orders to share custody or if they were just switching again. When they were sharing custody of her, they had a meeting point to give Alex back to the other parent. I don't know if this was weekly, monthly, or how their situation was. But their meeting place was Leicester Square, which is in West Virginia. It seems to be like a strip mall. I looked it up and it had lots of shops and stuff. On August 8th of 2000, Ricky had Alex and he was taking her back to Susan. They met at Leicester Square And when Susan arrived, Alex got out of the vehicle, got her stuff. She told Ricky goodbye and that she loved him. Ricky had no idea at the time that this would be the last time he would see his little girl. This is where things get really vague, guys. There wasn't much documentation about this case at all. There wasn't even but a couple newspaper articles, and those were very scarce. So the timeline is going to be a little confusing, and I'm sorry for that. I don't have dates. I'm going to try to put things in order from the information that I do have. Now, after this meetup, Ricky and Susan had another court hearing. They had lots of them, guys. Lots. At this hearing, at the time, Ricky had temporary custody, but Susan didn't show up. And because she didn't show up, the judge granted Ricky custody. Ricky was like, hey, where are they? So he had tried contacting Susan. It doesn't appear that he was able to talk to Alex very much, if at all, when Susan had her. So it's unclear as to exactly how long it had been since he talked to Susan or Alex. Like I said, I don't have any dates for these events. But after this hearing, when Susan didn't show up, at some point, Ricky was done, and he reached out to Larry Webb, Susan's husband, Alex's stepdad, and was like, hey, where's Susan? She didn't show up for court. I haven't heard from her. I haven't heard from Alex. What's going on? Tell me something, please. Larry said that Susan left him. He said that she had taken some money. She stole it from him, took Alex, and just ran away with a man named Manuel. I saw on social media a post that's allegedly from Ricky himself on the Help Find Missing Natasha Alexandria Carter Facebook page. This was a comment on one of the posts that said Larry told him that Susan took Alex and ran away with Manuel, but then he contacted him again later, and Larry told him the man's name was Jose. This bothered Ricky, according to that Facebook post. He was like, why would he give me two different names? This is the only place I could find that he talked to Larry twice and was given two different names. Everything else I found just used the name either or, as if they didn't know for sure what the guy's name was. But according to this comment, it was two different guys, two different conversations. That was a red flag for Ricky, for sure. After Larry told Ricky this, he contacted the police. Police were pretty sure, based on the evidence, that this was a non-custodial parent kidnapping. So on November 13th of 2000, a felony warrant for kidnapping was issued for Susan's arrest. Again, I don't have dates, so I don't know if they issued this warrant right away or after they just did some research, and a month or so later, they issued this warrant. But by this time, where were they? It seems like Ricky hadn't seen or heard from Alex since August 8th. That's months. There was no tips, there was no clues. Larry didn't really give him any information other than that she left him. Susan could be anywhere. Alex could be anywhere. Was Alex in a school somewhere? There were no records. Ricky was devastated. It had been months, but he didn't give up. He hung up flyers. He created social media accounts dedicated to finding her. He had a $10,000 reward posted. Police had the case, but they were so far behind, they didn't even have a starting place. It had been possibly months since Susan had been seen. They had no tips. They had no place to canvass, no areas to search, no starting point. Because of this, the odds were that Alex was taken across state lines, so the FBI got involved really quickly, but that wasn't much help. Time passed, weeks passed, months passed, years passed, decades passed, with no movement on this case and virtually no tips. The police couldn't do anything. They had nothing to work with. It wasn't that they didn't care. They were just so far behind with no evidence. Two people missing is very hard. How does this happen? It's hard to hide one person that's kidnapped. It's even harder for both of them to hide. Maybe they were in another country. The case was cold from the start. Then, in a surprising announcement in December of 2021, the FBI said that they were looking into Alex's case again. They said it had just been too long with nothing. They had to go at it at a different angle. Since Susan and Alex were living with Larry at the time they went missing, they figured this would be the best place for them to start. Armed with a search warrant, they went to Larry's home and began looking there for evidence. By this time, Larry was much older. I believe he was in his 80s. his health and memory were declining rapidly. It was reported that Larry said he didn't know why they were searching his home. He said the name Natasha sounded familiar, but he wasn't sure why, and he said he thought at some time he was married to a Susan. During this search, Larry had a live-in caretaker, and this caretaker reported that the FBI, during their search, had found blood under some tiles and a bullet in the wall. At first, the FBI did not confirm this, but they did come out later and said, in fact, they did find a bullet in the wall and that they were sending it off for testing. After a long, long wait, the results for that bullet came back, and they were positive for blood. That blood proved to match Alex. In October of 2023, Larry Webb was indicted with the first-degree murder and death of Alex. He was not charged for anything related to Susan. For all they know, Susan was still just a missing person that could have ran away. Because of Larry's health, it was so much harder to arrest him. Even though he was indicted in October, he wasn't actually arrested and taken into custody until April 12th of 2024. Yes, less than a month ago. It's not like he could just sit in a regular jail cell. He had to be in a medical ward. A lot of steps had to go into the process. While he was awaiting trial, investigators did question him more, and he finally admitted to what happened nearly 24 years earlier. Larry told investigators that some money from his home had gone missing, and he confronted Susan about this. He confronted her about these large spendings that she had been doing. They got into a fight, and he shot her. He said that he shot Alex only because she might implicate him in Susan's murder. From the public documents that I have found, it's unclear as if Alex saw this happen or if she was even home at the time. She could have just come home and found her mother, or he could have just been waiting her. Again, this has all just been coming out in the last few months, so the specifics are very unclear. Larry said that he kept the bodies in the basement for a couple days while he dug a hole in the wooded area in his backyard. Searchers went to Larry's house and began excavating, looking for the graves, but they weren't finding anything. Because of Larry's dementia, they were worried that they would never find it, so they actually took the risk and took Larry out there to see if he could point them in the right direction, but this didn't help. Larry was taken to Montgomery General Hospital on Monday, April 22nd, 2024, where he died. But April 22nd, 2024 wasn't just the death of Larry. Investigators located Alex and Susan's remains just hours before Larry died. Though it wasn't the ending that he wanted, Ricky finally knows where and what happened to his beloved little girl. He has told people of missing persons, quote, "Never give up, just never give up," end quote. Police have said that Larry was a person of interest early on in the investigation, but the facts and evidence they had at the time simply pointed them towards a family abduction. Only time is what made them seem like they made a mistake. I hope that they can learn from this and do better in an investigation similar to this in the future. Not that they did anything wrong, but if they took a second or third look into Larry sooner, they may have gotten justice sooner. That's everything for the story of Alex Carter and her mother Susan, who actually turned out to be a victim too. May they both rest in peace. That's all for today's case. If you don't already, please follow or subscribe depending on where you listen. Please leave a 5-star review as it really does help the podcast grow. If you have a case you want us to cover, email us at beforeamberpod@gmail.com. You can also follow the show across all social media. We will be back in 2 weeks to remember someone else. Until next time, thanks for listening. Later. Just a reminder, as always, people of interest and suspects in these cases are innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. All sources are listed in our show notes, but some sources for this case includes newspapers.com, CNN.com, usatoday.com, WTRF, CBSnews.com, and The Charlie Project. Later.